we need to know what our weaknesses are, but they don't get a vote.
You can't gauge the value of your day or the value of you based on your accomplishments only.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the BR Coalition podcast. My name is Jordan Berry. I'm here with my dad, Doug Berry, and we're going to be talking about fighting perfectionism and giving ourselves too many options today. We're going to be covering how striving to be perfect could be crippling your progress and some of the deeper reasons why we all may be procrastinating. So a lot of good things to get into here.
Yeah, excuse making, analysis paralysis, a whole host of things.
Before we get started though, Dad, could you lead us in prayer?
Absolutely, you betcha. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Joseph, conqueror of hell,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Let's talk about what is perfectionism and how would you describe that?
Well, this is something I think a lot of people go through in various ways. Some call it OCD, some call it, in spiritual world, you can call it scrupulosity, which is the fear of not being perfect enough spiritually. There's so many different areas where people struggle with just, trying to get through the day and accept certain things while still doing their best. There's some people who slide to the other side of it and the bar is so low, they don't care about anything. They're not worried about how anything is presented, about their character or their home or what have you. So I mean, you've got all varying sides of this, but on the side of perfectionism and not being able to kind of just let go of certain things, it's a real battle for some people. So again, this is a very relatable topic, I know, because it does hinder progress. It hinders us getting certain basic projects done, cleaning the house, even working on character traits.
And some of the reasons why we may be struggling with perfectionism, we've got fear of failing. It's a great excuse to not start if the circumstances aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Self-consciousness. That's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Being self-conscious.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wonder if someone else is going to think I'm an idiot. Or a lot of people, heaven forbid, think I look like an idiot.
How am I going to look in front of others?
Right.
Is always a big issue.
And then there's also the more serious side of things, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which is actually a mental disorder, which has to be taken into account too. And if you do struggle with that, if any of us do struggle with that, it's important to, maybe talk to somebody, get yourself to a doctor and really cover that.
Help. Yeah. We're not doctors. We're just offering some advice here, things that we think can help.
Yeah.
And things that, we have gone through or might have gone through, after 33 years of traveling and speaking, a lot of people I've talked with who struggle with these types of things. So but we're not doctors. We're not trying to give medical,
advice
of any kind.
This is much more along just personality traits that we should work on.
Yeah.
So.
Just some good we're trying to offer some good advice to just take some good steps to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the problem that we have with waiting for the perfect circumstance to present itself before we do something?
Yeah.
Waiting for the stars to align. I don't know if you have any examples from your own life.
There's a couple of projects that I can remember trying to work on or still trying to complete that you're not familiar with. I'm not sure how to do this. I'm not sure how to patch this wall. Or, for me, I've got quite an extensive construction background, so remodeling houses and things like that, not a big deal. But I also understand that there are certain projects within that, whether it was tiling a shower or some other area that I wasn't very good at. I wasn't sure whether I should do it. I wanted it to be perfect when it was done. And so I would study and I would check out videos and I would look at, different experts in this field. And sometimes you can get to the point where I didn't want to pull the trigger on the project because I didn't feel I had enough information. And some of that was an excuse because I just wasn't sure how I was going to be able to do it if it was going to come out the way I wanted it to in the end. And this can be for anything in your life. I just don't want to do it yet because I don't know how it's going to come out. And so I got to study more, look at more videos, look at more reviews, research this a little more. And then you get that kind of over-analysis sort of problem with the analysis paralysis term we hear. Mm-hmm. I know people who do this. I remember the early years of Radix, my ministry, when I would travel, in a 15-passenger van with 5 or 6 members who were working for me at the time. And we'd drive across the country. And you'd pull into a convenience store. You're getting gas and people are going to get something to drink. And you look at 10, 12, 15 different refrigerator doors of drinks, juice, tea, milk, you name it, it's all there. And people, some of the members just stand there and look at it. I just don't know what to get. There's just too much to pick from. And that became a bit of analysis paralysis. It was funny.
Like a running joke.
There's a running joke. It's like, come on, man, just get over it. Picks up. We got to get the car, get back on the road, But I think you can make excuses for these things. And I did for certain things and certain projects that I just wouldn't pull the trigger on. Now, there is a reasonable amount of time I think a person has to take to study and research before they pull the trigger on a project,
We're definitely advocating educated decision making.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But you got to get to the point where you finally take a step and do it. And you also have to realize that the consequences, depending on what it is, the consequences are going to fall, and you're going to have to accept whatever it is. And you might have to redo this or redo that. But there are some things in life you just have to move forward with. Like if you become a parent, like when you became a parent, you and your wife, you start having babies. You can't stop and say, wait a minute, I'm not ready to be a parent yet. No, it's a little too late now. You got the child. You've got to move forward with it. Mm-hmm. And you've got to start making decisions as you go forward with it. But there is this up and down, I think, area in the brain. And an old spiritual director told me about this great way to look at it, a good perspective to look at it. And that was looking at your emotions and feelings, fears, concerns, analysis, all this as this up and down chart, like a graph. It goes really high, it gets really low. You get really sad, you're unsure, you doubt, I don't know. And then up here, oh, I'm excited, I'm ready to go. I don't know, but maybe I haven't studied enough. You've got to find the line right through the middle. Right through the middle is the truth, the reason, the practical side. And I had to overcome the fears and even the excitement. Oh, I'm excited, I'm going to go do it. Yeah, but did you study it well enough? Okay, I got to look into it a little bit more. You know this when it comes to camera equipment and equipment we use for the BRC here is you got to research, you got to study it. But then we've come to this decision making process where I say, son, what do you think? I looked it up. Okay, great. Pull the trigger on it. Let's do it. And we do it. And then we end up with, whether it's a mic stand or microphone, whatever piece of equipment. And then you just work with what you have. Could there be more out there that we could have looked into? Possibly.
I think a great point here to cover is working on your resilience and your critical thinking skills. Because once you do commit to something, being okay with failing and then being okay with adjusting the plan, maybe it's a way different than what you originally thought it was going to be.
Right.
Oh, this piece of equipment actually isn't working like I thought it would. So what are we going to do? We're going to adjust. We're going to figure it out, instead of thinking that the original plan has to be followed through to the end and it has to work. No, it doesn't have to work, right? Every day you just have to figure out how to adjust and make it better. And you should, because ideas change and you can always improve day to day.
And as you say that, one thing that comes to my mind is when I was a child, one of the reasons I grew up having a little struggle with scrupulosity of faith or in the faith or some sort of perfectionism was partly because, and this is a very serious issue I want everybody to think seriously about, the pressure that was put on me, especially by my father, who was an alcoholic. So some of this unnecessary, undue, unhealthy pressure he put on me was due to the alcoholism. And God rest my father's soul. He died over 30 years ago. And I still pray for the repose of his soul. And I have no ill feelings towards him. However, I grew up with, if I didn't do something a certain way, I was going to be scrutinized seriously for it. It's one thing to say to your child, and I try to do this with all of you kids that I raised. Okay, this is good. Okay, let's work with it. Let's try to get better. Okay, there's a mistake here. But when you feel the pressure of, boy, if I screw this up, I'm going to hear about it. That can really drive a person to be afraid to pull the trigger on projects or move forward with anything, because they're constantly afraid someone's going to come down on them, like rain on them like a thunderstorm of criticism, rather than, okay, point out the struggles and the problems and maybe where it could have been done better, but find the positive as well and realize that you're dealing with a human being who isn't perfect. In this world, not one of us is going to do things perfectly, really all the time, if ever. We are human. And I think God leaves that out there to remind us so that we can practice a little bit of compassion and forgiveness with one another.
Right. So even looking at myself being in a leadership position to my wife and my children, great analogy that I heard and I applied to my life was, so my son Eli, he's almost 6. I want his room to be clean. There's two main reasons why I want his room cleaned. One is to teach him respect for his things, to take responsibility for his items,
Right.
Learn good work ethic. And then two, the lesser important reason is the room needs to be cleaned, right? Your house needs to
It
be
still
ordered,
needs to.
right?
You want to create order in the home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but looking at that scenario, I want him to learn the responsibility, right? So if I say, Eli, I need you to go clean your room, buddy, and he goes in there, he's going to clean it according to the standards of a 5-year-old, not the standards of me, right? So if I go in there and I see the room isn't cleaned to, what I want it to be cleaned, and harping on a child to get that room clean, you'll get the room clean eventually, right? And you'll get it to where the toys are perfectly aligned or whatever, whatever standard you have. But what cost? At what cost?
Yeah.
So I might jeopardize the relationship with my son and actually make him, like you were talking about, the fear of being scrutinized if you don't do a good job.
Right.
I could be creating even more problems down the road that I don't know about. Versus if I go in there and I see that he put effort in, just acknowledge the effort and say, hey, good job, son. Even if I see some things aren't perfect, maybe just let it go. Maybe I pick it up and just, he's 5.
He's 5.
Just showing appreciation for effort and not correcting immediately.
Right.
As he grows, he may honestly correct himself because he's like, I get approval, or I find approval from dad or mom. I see appreciation when I do X, Y, and Z. Right. So I'm going to do a few more things this time. Or if they don't self-correct, because we're all human, that's where you come in after several reps of showing appreciation. You say, hey, next time, could you just make sure this area is over here?
Right.
Or this area over here is picked up too. I feel like that can be a really effective method, one, to get over myself, but then also build a relationship while also accomplishing the goal of getting the room clean.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're starting to apply pressure of correction and instruction a little differently as you negotiate it with the personality of your child, the age of your child, and the importance of what it is you're talking about. It's one thing to say, clean your room. It wasn't done just right. Okay, we'll work on it. Okay, let's relax, everybody. Let's be a little more gentle in the way we approach these things when it comes to something like that. That's different than maybe, okay, son, so you didn't clear your firearm correctly when you got done hunting and didn't put the gun away the right way.
Right.
You got to be a little more serious there because the nature of the issue, it could be life and death.
Right. That's a great point because there's different levels.
Yeah.
Like there's some, like you have to be a very good driver. You can't be a bad driver.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you might kill somebody.
Yeah. So you texted a little bit while you're driving, son. That's okay. Try to do better. No,
that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Be a little firmer in those areas. Yeah. But we have to be careful. And those of us who are in leader positions, and every parent is in a leadership position, you have to be really careful about where you apply, how much you apply this pressure, and what the topic is, whether or not it's that big a deal to worry about. I mean, honestly, there are things out there that we can really just let slide a lot more than other things. Okay, I'm big on making sure the curling iron and the iron unplugged and the stove top is off. Because that can burn the house down. Okay, so a little stricter on some of those types of things. Not as big a deal when it comes to when you're younger, picking up your toys or things of that nature. But those of us in leadership positions have to realize that we're applying pressure in a way that hopefully is making a diamond out of this person and not crushing them into nothing but dust. All right. Even God the Father, please, Lord, help us, is so careful, gentle, patient with us. There are times, obviously, there's a little firmer moment here and there. For example, we talk about prophecies of chastisements. The Blessed Mother warns in Fatima in 1917. There's going to be a second world war if you don't stop offending my son or stop offending God. There'll be a second world war. The warning was there, the gentleness of the mother. Pray the rosary, fast, sacrifice, these encouragements to get us in a position, even on something as serious as a chastisement, giving us forewarning and working with us. And the response of the human race obviously determines a lot of the gravity of the chastisement. That's been abundantly clear in many different apparitions and messages. So even in heaven, is my point, there is a gentleness and a working with us that God the Father clearly illustrates.
So let's talk a little bit about preparedness on that point there.
Right.
I know we just talked about different levels. Some things are graver than others, right? Texting while driving,
right,
versus making sure your toys are up off the floor. So preparedness is something we talk a lot about here BR Coalition, the Be Ready Coalition, is being prepared not only for your soul, right, for Judgment Day, mentally, but also physically.
And we've got something we're offering, again, with BRC. We want people to have the opportunity to get started on the preparedness and take the steps and not hold back and not wait, not fall into the analysis paralysis. How do you get your go bag put together? And we've got something on that, don't we?
Yeah, we have a complete checklist for your bug out bag or go bag in the description below or the summary of the podcast. So go check that out. It's a free download and it's a great way to get started. All the steps are listed out for you, so you don't have an excuse to
hold back,
over analyze it.
Well, and this is something I just want to emphasize: the whole go bag, bug out bag is not just so that you have a bag, which is important to have a bag, I believe, in your vehicle that has a variety of items in it to help you through an emergency situation, whether it's something on the spot there where you're stranded in a snowstorm, which happens, or your kids need some medical care, or you do, and you've got a med kit in the go bag, or you've got to be thinking about a dead battery and no one around to help jumpstart the car. And we recommend those little no-co chargers, in your go bag. It's not just a good idea to have these things. It starts to create a way of thinking in general to live in a preparedness mindset and not hesitate to take the steps to be better prepared.
And talking about perfectionism, this is a big thing. A lot of people won't take the step to prepare for their family because they don't know where to start.
Right.
Or they do know where to start deep down, but they just want to keep educating themselves like we talked about.
It's kind of like the last podcast we did on firearms. And we talked about how, here I was, Mr. Leadership, Mr. Father. Let's go, son. Let's go to the store. Let's start looking at firearms. Stand there staring at the counter. You have to check out that podcast. You can find it on BR Coalition on our channel here. And, looking at everything, having really no clue what I was going to do. And felt, in front of my son here, all right, son, I had to humble myself. I don't know exactly what we're doing here yet. Let's go figure this out. So we did more research on it. But we did reach a point when we said, we just have to move on this. And we purchased our first firearm each, and then it went from there. And again, it's a good example of you've just got to start taking the steps. And you're right, son, when it comes to being better prepared for family, when it comes to even defending your family, look, if there's anything you'd be thinking you want to do, I want to put food on the table. I want to put a roof over their head. I want to make sure they got the running water, the electricity, and they're safe. There's some medical care in the home. There's a med kit. There's a fire extinguisher. And I can protect them if somebody breaks into my house and tries to hurt my family. And I'm learning how to teach my family how to protect and defend themselves too. If I can't pull the trigger, no pun intended, on these things, right, then I've really got to get past some of this. I've really got some issues I'm struggling with. Laziness, excuse, or, oh, that'll never happen. I'm going to block it out of my mind. And if I don't think about it, it's going to go away. It's like trying to pretend that the Category 5 hurricane isn't going to hit, even though it's right off the coast about to hit. But if I don't think about it and I don't talk about it, then I don't have to do it. And that's another reason that people don't take the steps to be better prepared and help their family prepare with some of these things we're talking about.
Right. So let's point to here at the podcast some possible solutions for these problems. One of them is reducing our options, which is a huge thing for me, especially because since we're on the point of preparedness, if I'm buying a new piece of gear for the family, whether that be a generator or pocket knife, some water filter, whatever, you name it, something for the homestead, I have to look at every single piece of gear out there and know exactly every rating. How many stars does this one have? How many stars does this one have? What's the shipping time? Can I get a better price? Too many options.
Yeah. And everybody does reviews on these, so you got to read and check out. Watch
let's
every
not
review.
even get on YouTube. I mean, that's a whole other ball game. So,
yeah.
Do you have anything on that point about reducing your options?
Yeah, tell yourself, you give yourself a certain window of time that you're going to research it, do a decent amount of it, and then commit. All right. I will look at a number of reviews and then I stop. All right. If I look at a consensus, it's like when I book a hotel somewhere, I like to read the reviews in the hotel. I look at the negative reviews only. Somebody's going to give a 5 out of 5 star review. Oh, it was all great. Okay, fine. They have no problem with it. Look at the negative reviews.
You want to see if there's a pattern.
Pattern. That's it. I look at the pattern. Is there a consistency? Is it, well, the customer service care at the front desk was bad. Okay, that's one person. The other person says, I didn't like the choice of food at the free continental breakfast. Okay, next person. Yeah, the pillows were lumpy. Okay, all right. So there's no consistency. These people just had a bad moment. But if I read 3, 4, 5 reviews it wasn't clean. Yeah, there was mold. Yeah, it just wasn't very clean. Yeah, I didn't feel like the sheets were clean. Okay, that's the pattern that I'm looking for. And then I stop and I move on. So give yourself a limited amount of time, a limited amount of reviews or research you're going to do on it, and then commit to it, provided you've got a consistency of something positive in the product or the item or the thing you're going to do. And then be okay if the consequences aren't perfect. Again, depending on the subject matter. You're dealing with something that's a life and death thing that's different, medical procedures and so forth. You want to do maybe a little more research on that. But when it comes to a project like painting your house or remodeling or something, commit to it. Get over those things that keep you from committing, knowing that the consequences are going to turn out maybe not 100% perfect.
A great analogy I heard from the author of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He held up a cup and said, your mind's like this cup. And he takes a pitcher of water, starts pouring water. And he says, this water is information. It's stuff that you're filling your mind with, to make a certain decision. He starts pouring the water in the cup, and then it starts to overflow. And he says, your mind can only hold so much. So once you get that full, that's your point where you need to commit, like you just said.
Yeah.
So I agree. Give yourself a deadline, a reasonable deadline,
Yeah.
not based off of trying to find the perfect moment or the perfect circumstance, because that's never going to be there. Find that deadline, educate yourself, and then pull the trigger. Be willing to adjust afterwards too.
And that's the part I was going to make mention of again and emphasize is be willing to adjust afterwards. Be willing to be okay with it not being what you thought it might turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as perfect as you thought or wanted it to be. Be okay with that. The world that we live in is not perfect. No one is perfect. Everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs to sleep. Everybody stubs a toe once in a while. You're going to wake up in the morning, you have bad breath. Eventually some of us lose our hair. Eventually the wrinkles come. Look, we live in an imperfect world. God did not create this world to be perfect and have everything around it perfect. You're going to get better or worse at times. And yes, the amount of effort and work and discipline, study, and so forth you put into things does play into that without a doubt. Okay. But be okay with things not being perfect. Be okay with people not being perfect. That doesn't mean you be okay with...
Most importantly, be okay with yourself not being perfect.
Yes, that too. Now, don't be okay with an abuser or you being an abuser of some sort, or
don't be okay with
an addict or sin. Exactly. Don't be okay with those things, but be okay with the fact that, you know what, I'm just not quite where I know I need to be and where God's moving me towards.
Right.
And
but see, God knows that about us. That's why He gave us the sacraments.
Exactly.
That's why we have confession.
Yes.
Which we should be utilizing
regularly. Yeah, we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
As long as we're working the right direction. All right. Again, don't settle for mediocrity, but don't kick yourself and beat yourself up over your humanity or over the project not coming out just right. Like me, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to painting. Like I've done a lot of construction work.
I appreciate because when you help paint my house, I know I can count on you, so it's going to look good at the end.
There you go.
Even better than what I'm going to do.
And that helps that people can count on us, for the different things. Like I count on you. You've done all my video work for years, and I just hand over to you, son, and you just do amazing work. And I don't get picky about it at all. But you can drive yourself crazy. Like I can paint something and I tape it off and, I do the cutting and the trim, then I pull that tape off and I want that nice clean line. I like a nice clean line and corners and all when I'm painting. And if it's not quite like that at the end, and it isn't always like that. Sometimes, paint seeps under the tape just a little bit and you can do a little scraping, a little touch up. You can drive yourself nuts for days trying to get one perfect little clean line. I just got to let it go. You reach a point, it looks really good. Okay, it's good. We're done, and we're moving on because there's other things that are more important. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story that was kind of embarrassing, but I'll admit this to everybody. I think I've told this publicly and speaking live around the country over the years. When you and your sister were younger, you remember this. I know I've told you this, and you were in the backyard, first house we owned, and I'm in the backyard. It's a summer day or spring day, and I'm working on the lawn and mowed the lawn, and now I'm trimming it. Now I'm pulling some weeds, and I'm taking care of my lawn. And you and your sister were on the patio playing, and your younger brother, I think, was just a baby, so he wasn't even outside. And at one point, you're like, "Hey, Dad, come over here. Daddy, come here." I said, "I'll be right there, kids. I'll be right there," because I needed to work on that lawn a little bit more because it wasn't quite perfect for me. Now, if anybody could see the lawn, we're laughing because The house was built in 1917. I think the lawn, I don't probably about that age too. It's just kind of beat up and old and worn
See,
out.
but I was just a kid. I don't remember any of that. I just
Yeah.
remember playing in the backyard. So.
Yeah, it was a mess. But I'm trying to make it a better lawn, trying to improve it. Okay, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm working on the lawn. Hey, daddy, I'll be right there, kids. I'll be right there. Keep working on the lawn and keep working on it. A little more trimming, a few more weeds to pull. Finally, your mom comes out. Okay, kids, time to come in for bed. She takes you in because it's evening time, right? Sun's still up, right? And I turn and look, and you're going in the house. Now she didn't know. Your mom didn't know that you had been asking me to come over and hang out with you and play with you. And she didn't know that I had said, hold on, I'll be right there. She didn't know that. And you guys might not even remember it because you were so little. But I remember watching you walk in the house, and it struck me right there. This lawn and my perfectionism attitude over this lawn became more important than the people that are most important in my life.
Just like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Is the perfect lawn the goal? Or
Right.
is the goal to have a decent lawn, but good relationships with the people who play on the lawn?
Right on.
Or the room, in my case, with my son.
Right.
You know?
And I never want to forget that moment in my life because it really affected me. And I know that what I just said to a lot of people out there, this resonates. We put things in front of people. We put our perfectionism over stuff sometimes, even our perfectionism over about people, about our kids, over the most important part, the deeper, more loving relationship with the person. And I never want to forget that. That lawn, by the way, is 3, 4, 5 different homes ago that I lived in. I've moved several times since then. It's in another state right now. It doesn't have any bearing whatsoever on my life or your life, but the relationship between me and my son or my other kids is far, far more important than a stupid lawn.
I heard a quote. There's a million moments I took for granted because at the time I thought I'd get a million more moments just like it.
That's a good quote.
It kind of hit me pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially like you're like, oh, this is really nice. I'm on the couch watching a movie with my kids,
Yeah.
when I should be cleaning or when I should be doing, all this other stuff that I think I should do. When really they're probably fine. Now, I'm not saying sometimes you do have to get up and do the dishes like we just talked about in the other, or work out or get your prayers in.
Right.
But then the point here is just to appreciate what really matters in the circumstance.
Yeah.
What's the bigger play? Yeah,
it's trying to find that the importance of finding the healthy, call it balance, call it more the big picture of the right way of ordering these things, the right order of it all. Things have to be clean. Things have to be repaired. Things have to be purchased. You have to do due diligence, research, and look into things and reviews and so forth. But you can't get things to this place of such focus on a perfectionism about it that it starts to interfere with the order of other things in your life.
And relationships always take priority.
Yeah.
Over things. That's one thing you always told us as kids was, I think we just were thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't let things become more important than people.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yep.
I got the gist.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Things should never be more important than people.
Like we were bickering with my siblings or fighting over toys.
Yeah.
So what's more important here? You guys being brothers and loving each other, or the Legos?
Yeah.
Better.
Now stored in the attic.
Exactly. I don't even know where they are.
I got them stored in the attic.
They're hidden from the small grandchildren right now.
Yeah.
Until they're old enough.
Until they get old enough, then those little pieces get a little more safer. Yeah. A little safer. But yeah. And this, again, we can't let the perfectionism thing become an excuse not to complete the projects. I want to emphasize that again, that, remember that line that goes through the middle. Well, perfectionism up high, emotions, concern, fear, worry, afraid to be criticized, afraid of self-esteem, afraid of looking bad, afraid of this. I don't know what to do. I'm unsure of myself. But that line right through the middle says practical reason says I need to act on something, and I need to do it in a relatively measured way so that I can accomplish the goal and get it done the right way. And then, of course, the prioritizing of these things also plays into this, where you have to look at what is most important and then order it so that that's where you're emphasizing your time and your energy. But you have to act on things. God wants us to act on things. Think about the 3 servants. And if you remember, I would sometimes put scripture verses or quotes or things, and I would cut them out and stick them to the mirror in the bathroom.
You laminated them.
Yeah, I did. I laminated some.
Laminated notes all over the bathroom mirror.
Just a few. Do you remember the quote, don't fall into the third servant syndrome?
I do remember that. That was on the bathroom mirror.
That was in the
Thanks.
bathroom mirror. Yeah. Third servant syndrome is when Jesus gives the talents to the three servants. The first one he gives 5, the second one he gives 2, last one he gives 1. When he comes back later, the master comes back later, the first servant has doubled. The 5 made it 10. The second one has doubled. The 2 made it 4. In both cases, even though they had different amounts, one had 5, one had 2, they both put everything into it and they both doubled it. And the response from the master was the same. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been responsible with what I gave you. The third one took the 1 and buried it. And he said, I knew you were a tough master. You gathered where you didn't plant. You reaped where you didn't sow. I was afraid, so I took it and I buried it. Here it is all back. And he says, you worthless, lazy lout. That's what he calls him. You knew I was a hard master, gathered where I didn't plant, reaped where I didn't sow. You could have put it in the bank, given it back with interest. You could have done something with it. You didn't act on it. You sat on it. Fear? He says, no, you were lazy, worthless, lazy lout. He didn't buy into the fear thing. He said, you worthless, lazy lout. Take the 1 from him, give it to the one with the 10 and throw him out. Bind him hand, foot, throw him out, wailing and gnashing of teeth. So our Lord himself is saying, I give you something, you need to act on it. You need to act on it. Of course, 5, 2, or 1, it doesn't matter whether you're given just a little bit in life, gift, talent-wise, or whether you're given a lot. We're called by God to act on it in an appropriate way, doing due diligence, of course, to research, study, make the right decisions, best of our ability. That practical line of reason goes right through the middle that says you've got to act on it, though. You've got to do something, and then you trust the rest to God. And we talk about that when it comes to prepping. You can't be afraid to pull the trigger on adding more food, more water, medical, self-defense, get the shelter going. We talk about this in our BREP course, our Battle Ready Emergency Preparedness course, is take the steps. A lot of people analyze, research, I just don't know what to do. Let's just not think about it. And then they don't move on it. But that doesn't prepare your family for some kind of a crisis, be it a natural disaster, civilized collapse of some sort, structural collapse of our society.
It's more important to be a little bit prepared than to be completely prepared, especially when it comes to the safety of your family.
Yeah. If you can't be completely prepared,
if you
at least
can't,
have something.
Right. If you're just getting started.
Yeah.
Just get started is the point here. But
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, before we move on to point 3, self-talk. Something we covered a little bit in a previous podcast, but when we talk about being perfect and putting off your goal because you're self-conscious, you're afraid of looking stupid, or some of us are just lazy, right? I can say that about myself. Sometimes I'm just lazy and I feel exhausted. I just don't want to do it. It's pretty simple. I make excuses. We all make excuses to somehow justify that in our mind. But a lot of it is self-talk. I forget who it was when it came to working out, but they said the way they were able to work out every day for X amount of years and get in this great shape and become this great athlete was because they didn't think or talk to themselves before they put a system in place, and then they didn't negotiate with themselves because they knew they put the system in place when they were in sound mind, not tired, not upset, not sad. They just did it. There was no negotiation,
right?
Which I think a lot of us do, myself included, is negotiate with ourselves. Like, oh, well, let's see, if I don't work out today, or if I don't pray today, I could pray extra tomorrow, work out extra hard tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, we don't do that. I mean, maybe you do that, but that's not a long-term plan.
No, a lot of times it's you're discussing with yourself how not to do it.
Right.
You're basically negotiating a way out.
Yeah.
You're not negotiating in a lot of cases, you're not negotiating a better way, a more productive way, a way of getting multiple things done maybe, or readjusting. It's normally a negotiation to escape having to do it. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of times what it is. And most people are not self-motivated. A lot of people are not self-motivated. They don't wake up and go, okay, let's go. They wake up, okay, I have to get certain things done. Therefore, and then certain things slide, and they're okay with letting certain things slide.
Self-motivation can be developed, though.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And that's something I think a lot of people don't. Another thing that we can blame is, we're just not that way. We're not self-motivated. That's not my personality.
That's not my personality.
We need to know what our weaknesses are, but they don't get a vote.
Yeah.
We need to know where we're lazy, but our laziness doesn't get a vote.
You don't negotiate with whether or not you should change your baby's diaper. It needs to get done, right? And so you're right. You can change these things about yourself and become more self-motivated. You can do it based on, again, let's go back to that graph. I don't feel like doing it. I'm really sad. I'd rather do other things. And the truth down the middle says, no, there's certain things that have to be done. I can make these things happen. By the grace of God, the strength that he gives me, I can accomplish all things through Christ who strengthens me. All these, wonderful scripture verses that remind us of that. It ultimately boils down to, I have to choose to to commit and act on these things.
That's where I think motivation is greatly overrated.
Yeah. Well,
Greatly overrated.
remember, we've talked about this before, that saying, the difference between discipline and motivation. And I've heard, soldiers, combat vets talk about this, and other people, the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is like emotion. It can come and go, right? It has its place. It's not bad, but it's not what you're going to build your house on, is emotion or motivation. You're going to build it on the discipline of the day-by-day, step-by-step need.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a foxhole and you can pick one person to be your battle buddy in that foxhole in the middle of a war, whether it's a spiritual war, natural war, whatever it is, you're going to pick somebody who's emotionally excited and motivated, or somebody who is disciplined and knows what to do and will act upon it.
There's something so cool when you think about that. Like if you know somebody, even if you don't know somebody, just imagine somebody who, no matter what the day looks like for them, they do the same 3 things every day, right? Maybe they pray first thing in the morning, they get a workout in, and they spend quality time with the people they love. And they do that every day. It's not because they feel like it, it's a system, but like clockwork, like it just immovable like a rock.
Right.
We all appreciate those people.
Oh, yeah.
So first, you need to believe that you can do that. And then you need to put a system in your day to become that, because you can be that person. Yeah. You can be that superhero that you want to be. You can be that superhero. I don't mean like you can't be Thor.
No, well, yeah.
But, you can see that role model, that mentor you had growing up. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's an uncle. Maybe a best friend, or, someone who's not necessarily a peer. Maybe it is a peer. But we all have somebody we can look up to and say, that person, like analyze what made that person so substantial. Yeah. Why were they a rock? Mm-hmm. What systems did they have in place? I guarantee they weren't given their laziness and their weakness didn't get a vote when they were deciding to do their systems.
It's a pretty safe bet. It's because there was a sense of discipline in them in some way that was reliable and consistent enough that people could rely on them. Mm-hmm. Reliability is a big thing. We all want that.
We love those characters in movies.
Oh, we do. Yeah. I want the doctor to be reliable. I don't want him to work on me or my family member or loved one based on how they feel. He shows up one day, I'm not into this doctoring thing today. The
surgeon just was in a bad mood. And
I just don't feel like cutting this person open and fixing their heart or whatever else. Now, I want someone who comes in as disciplined and knows what needs to be done and gets it done, whether it's the paramedic, a lawyer, an accountant, law enforcement, the guy that's going to fix my roof or my heating and air conditioning system. I want somebody who just simply knows the discipline of what needs to be done. That's what we're all wanting. That's what God wants us all to be, have that sense of discipline and take those steps. So in that foxhole, who do you want? The emotional, I'm fired up to fight in a war. I don't feel like it now. Or do you want someone who says, you know what? No, we just do this.
You want the stable, this is what been there, done that. We got this.
It's day in, day out discipline and consistency that we're relying on. And again, that's that line of truth that goes right through the middle when you're so high and so low, so excited, so down, so frustrated, so happy, whatever it might be. That truth in the middle keeps things on that straight and narrow, which helps other people be able to rely on you as well.
Let's move into point 3, final point of the podcast here. Some actionable steps for people. So one thing I think that's stopping a lot of people from accomplishing their goals or putting things off, waiting for the perfect circumstance, is wasting time. Mm-hmm. Like we just talked about, looking up too many reviews on something, or saying, oh, I got to wait for so-and-so, relying on someone else to do something in order for you to take the next step. So let's talk a little bit about maybe tracking your week and how much time you may be wasting.
I go back to my sticky notes. The first thing that comes to my mind is my sticky notes on my desk. I've gotten to a point with me, because my life, and a person has to look at their job, and my job, of course, as is yours since we work together, is it fluctuates a lot based on projects that we're working on, certain times of the year, certain themes that we're trying to focus on with BRC. I do the U.S. Grace First podcast with Father Heilman, so there has to be a consistency in that. We record almost every Monday or Tuesday, and the podcast has to be edited and out by Wednesday. So I have a certain system that I have to because I edit the podcast to get it uploaded and out. And then of course there's traveling once in a while. So I'm flying here, traveling there, speaking there, and those things all have to be factored in. So my schedule is all over the place. So for me, it comes down a lot of times to the sticky notes. And what I mean by that is just my way. I'm more old school. I mean, I know people like their phones and they put all their notes on their phones, and I'm not like that. I don't have a leash to this thing. And be careful, because we get so attached to something like this and then it gets manipulated the wrong way. And yeah,
I call those the resilience killers.
the resilience killers. That's
Just
good.
takes away our ability to think for ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing, like with AI, which we're going to do a podcast on AI in the near future, I hope. There's so many things happening with AI that is killing people's ability to actually think for themselves. And while the technology can be great and used wonderfully in certain ways, there are other areas that can be very destructive. Anyway, getting into that another time. For me, though, I get up in the morning. I got to make sure first thing is I'm talking to God first thing in the morning, some form of prayer first thing in the morning. And then I'm sitting in my office at my desk and I'm looking at my sticky notes, and I'm getting my coffee maybe, and I'm just kind of getting rolling here. And I start looking at, okay, what needs to be done today? Where's the priority today? Today we're recording a podcast. Yesterday we didn't. So these types of things are always thrown in the mix there. Look at the sticky notes. How do you organize things? And then how do you start eliminating the things on that list that you organize? Some people like to write it down on a notepad. Some people like to do it again with their phone or their iPad or whatever. But basically organize and then start to eliminate the things. And then if I get a lot done in one day, I feel great. If I don't get a lot done, I still look at what did I get accomplished? But what I had to do was this, and I don't know if other people, I'm sure people out there are kind of like this. You can't gauge the value of your day or the value of you based on your accomplishments only. Okay.
100%.
We do need to accomplish things,
Mm-hmm.
but if you have a day where things just don't get done like you'd hoped, you can't beat yourself up on it unless there was maybe you made some dumb decisions in the process. Okay.
Right. That's analyze your day.
Yeah.
And realize or find out if you were wasting time. Maybe
Yeah.
you didn't. This goes back to the point we were just trying to make, was look at your day. Maybe if it went really well, track it, analyze that.
Yeah.
Why did it go well? And then look at a bad day. Why did that fail? Maybe it was things you couldn't control. Maybe you didn't handle it. Maybe you didn't respond correctly.
Right.
Or maybe you did. And it was just, sometimes you just have a bad day.
Right.
Not everything necessarily is this deep lesson.
Well, a family member calls you at 10 o'clock at night and says, "Hey, I got to run so-and-so, a child or a spouse to the emergency room. Can you come over and watch the kids?"
That's out of your control.
It's out of your control.
So your sleep's going to be thrown off that night.
You went over there and then you didn't get home till like 2 a.m.
Then you got to adjust the next day.
You have to adjust.
Cut yourself some slack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly on all of that. And those are things that I know everybody has to deal with in one way, shape, or form.
Going back to the phone thing that you just held up, that's a big time killer. Mm-hmm. Get on social media and just scroll. Those can be huge motivation killers. So,
well,
there's apps you can actually get to track how much time or limit the amount of time you have, which works for some people. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
What helps me is just putting my phone in another room if I need to do something.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm with my kids.
And I, because of my age, I'm 107. So, because of my age,
got some really good systems in place, Dad.
Pretty good for 107, huh? No, but I am older, so I grew up without phones. Okay. It just wasn't something I had. So I'm the type of person that doesn't like to rely on a phone tracking my time and what I'm doing. I get notifications, you spent such and such amount of time on your phone, a little less or a little more than last week and so forth. It's like, really? I didn't even know you're paying attention to this stuff. Okay. I don't like that. Something else has to tell me how to track this and that. Now, if that works for you, that's up to you, but that's not me. Mm-hmm. I want to know that I got more self-control over something like that. I like the quote from John Wayne. Life is hard. Life is harder when you're stupid. Okay. That's a harsh quote for some people, I know, but let's modify it a little bit. Life is hard. Life is harder when you make stupid decisions that waste time, fall into excuses, overanalyze, procrastinate, you name it. I mean, life is harder when we make decisions that make it harder. So if we have that disciplined attitude, and this is a formation thing. Sometimes we weren't formed this way as kids, and we have to form ourselves. By God's grace and the help of good people around you, and hopefully ideas like from this podcast and other podcasts that we do, And actually, from that free download you can get to get your bug out bag squared away, that's a great way. Go to the information, the link in the description below, and get yourself that free download that helps you get started on organizing a basic bug out bag, go bag, emergency bag for your vehicle. That will help you move forward with progress in many, many other areas because it starts to train the way you think. It's not a matter of just having items and materials. It trains the way we think about just being better prepared and how we can deal with certain problems come our way.
That plays into the podcast. 2 podcasts ago, we talked about the micro tasks,
Right.
right? Maybe your step to preparedness, preparing for your family physically, is just getting a bag put together, like the free download we're offering right now. Or maybe it's buying that one case of water, because that one little task is going to lead to something else, to something else, to something bigger.
Right.
It's not about doing it all at once. It's about doing the small things one at a time.
Yeah. And
So-
and we've got to consider that we're building on things all the time, and be okay with the building process, sometimes going faster or slower at different times of your life. Again, with the exercise, like you said, it's built into me to exercise pretty much 5-6 days a week. I don't have the negotiation problem with myself when it comes to working out. I've been doing it for literally 46 years. I started when I was 12. I'm 58. Okay, so 46 years, I've been doing something. I've very rarely taken any kind of a hiatus of more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time, ever in 46 years. So it's built into me. I feel better when I do it mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, obviously. It's just something that I just don't negotiate. It just is something that has to be done. 10 minutes, sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes I'm out there and I'm just doing a quick stretch of some sort and knock out a few sets of this and that out there, meaning in my garage. If I'm in a hotel somewhere, traveling somewhere and they don't have a good fitness center, I'll do it in the hotel room. I've worked out with suitcases. I mean, I've done all kinds of things. You can do it and not have to get into that negotiation phase. Other things in life, I've tried to adopt that as well in other areas. So don't think to yourself, like you said earlier, son, this is just who I am. It's just the way I am. It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. It's
like-
a cop out.
It's a cop out.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. You can, most all of us, can adjust these things, and by God's grace and good, practical, actionable steps, we can get better at this stuff. It's kind of like saying anytime there's a shooting, tragic, another shooting at the time we record this, another shooting just took place in Michigan at university up there. And right away, everybody goes to, it's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue. And a lot of times it might be. Sometimes it's a moral issue. It's called an evil issue, right? We can't just always point, it's just a mental issue. Therefore, we have to.
Us saying something is not evil doesn't get rid of evil. Just because we shut the light off on a messy room doesn't make the mess go away.
Exactly.
Just because we're not looking at it.
Yeah. Turn your back on the Category 5 hurricane. It doesn't mean it's not coming still. So you can't just turn your back on the reality that a lot of people do bad things, whether it's a mass shooting or other types of crimes, because they're people who are just cooperating with evil. It's not all some sort of mental illness. Same concept here. Don't simply say, it's just who I am. It's just what I am. No, start working on the little steps to adjust that and change that. And yeah, there are extreme cases where there is some mental or emotional struggles and trauma that does need to be addressed in different ways. But for the majority of us, all right, face it, one of the main reasons that a lot of people are out of shape, for example, is they simply are choosing not to take the steps to do what's necessary to get in shape. Sometimes it's excuses, sometimes it's laziness, sometimes it's procrastination, sometimes it's they're just adjusting their day in such a way that they are choosing to be so busy that they won't make time for that.
Fear of failure. Maybe they're afraid that they're not going to get in shape or look how they want to look.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's establish that too. Everybody, look, don't worry about this. Don't compare yourselves to, again, this Instagram social media mindset of how
those
we
are all
should
edited
look.
photos anyway. None of those people. Well, I shouldn't say none. Don't want to generalize, but
it's,
a lot of the photos on any of those social media sites have been enhanced in some sort of way. There's studies done on this stuff.
Yeah.
So
well, and it's really not
it's
accurate.
dangerous.
I mean, when I was younger, when I was into more weightlifting and the whole world of bodybuilding, which I never competed in, I never got into, but yeah, you get enamored by that as a young man. The guys with the big muscles and everything, right? And you're looking at that whole world. When those guys are on stage, looking as ripped and cut as they are, they're about as unhealthy as you can be. They're going
starved.
off like 500-600 calories a day. They're eating tuna in water. And and some vitamin supplements, and that's about it for about a week.
There was one bodybuilder who said something that is not talked about. I forget his name, but he said that every time he was prepped for a show. It hurt to walk across the stage because there was no fat on the bottom of his feet. That's how lean he was, which is impressive that someone can do that. Like our minds are that strong that we can commit and take action to do something that extreme. I don't know if that's
But it's not healthy. It isn't. And the bigger problem, man, I think, is that when we look at people in the social media world that look a certain way in the body type, and we think that's what I got to look like, but I'm not going to look that way. Therefore, I just don't take action on it. It's like, first of all, that's not a great comparison to begin with. If that's what you're looking at, general health, general fitness. Look, you're going to have a little bit of fat on your body. That just goes with the human territory.
Yeah.
Okay, God made us that way. Some a little leaner than others based on body types that God designed and gave you. Let's be at peace with simply doing the best we can, taking care of ourselves, being reasonably healthy. But if we're not doing any of it because of some procrastination or some fear, some laziness or excuse making or some trauma in our life, and all this stuff does play a part in it, we got to start working on those little pieces right there a little bit. But it can always help if you just simply say, I got to be disciplined and I got to start taking these steps because it's a good thing to do. It's that line that goes through the middle again, everybody, that line that goes through the middle. Don't negotiate with yourself, as you said, son, which is great. Don't negotiate with yourself as to why you shouldn't or can't or won't. And realize that, you've got spiritual enemy out there as well, trying to attack us and wear us down as well as our own selves.
The devil, your weaknesses, they don't get a vote. They do not have your best interest in mind.
And if you've had any kind of an upbringing in your life, whether your parents or you were bullied at school or somebody somewhere or people in general put you down, criticized you, were harder on you than they should have been, you've got to try to work through that too. I had to with my dad's drinking, my dad's alcoholism. I had to not let the things that he said and the way he treated me wear me down to the point where I started beating myself up. And I went through that in my younger years. And with God's grace and good people around you, you can get through that. Don't let people wear you down, beat you up because of your upbringing or, again, being bullied of some sort. People who tell you, oh, you'll never amount to anything. Oh, you'll never this. Oh, you can't this. Or what are you thinking? You can't live that way. You can't.
So I think a really good question to ask ourselves if we are struggling with perfectionism or procrastination is what we have to get really crystal clear about our goals. What is our goal? So I guess here's another thing is you want to find the why behind the why. So what is your goal? Say, I want to get in shape. Why do you want to get in shape? Get a little bit deeper to the reason why. Well, because I don't like the way I look, or I want to be holy. Well, that's really broad. You need to get very pointed and clear about what exactly you want to do. So if you want to get in shape, is that because you're not able to do things with your family that you'd like to do? You're not able to go hiking. Yeah. Is it holding you back? Is your fitness level holding you back? And then put things in place to support that goal.
Yeah. If you can analyze and identify a couple of key things or one key thing as to why you want to move forward with this, that, or the other thing.
Right. Or maybe it's not even a physical goal. Maybe it's something internally that you want to, like, I want to be a more patient person.
Yeah.
Get a little bit more pointed with that. Why do you want to be a more patient person? Yeah. Well, because I'm kind of pushing away my teenage son because I'm not patient with him. I'm constantly harping on him and it's ruining our relationship. Okay. So your goal isn't to be more patient. Your goal is to have a good relationship with your son.
Right.
So let's look at that. You know what I mean? Like, find the deeper why.
Right.
There's a surface why, which is fine, but then there's a deeper why that I think can really accomplish that goal a little bit faster.
Yeah, it can help. Let's use the word motivate, but it can help inspire, motivate, or encourage us to find that discipline is to do those things because we know there's a deeper reason.
Then also find the things that are hindering you accomplishing that goal. So, like we've talked a lot about laziness, maybe it's addiction. Maybe you're addicted to something and it's really crippling you and you're not able to achieve a goal because of this specific addiction. Right. So maybe before you try to tackle this big goal that you've got in your head, maybe you got to focus on something that's not as fun and get some help with this addiction.
Right. We talk about goals. Don't look at them only as goals. Don't lump them all together as the same thing. Well, I have a goal of painting my house. I have a goal of building a new deck. I have a goal of getting out of debt. Okay, those are great goals and important things that need to be done, can be done, in certain cases, should be very important. It can be very important, I should say. But look at some of the things that you need to accomplish as necessities. I need to be a kinder person. I need to show more gentleness to people around me. I need to be more patient with my children or my spouse or my fellow employee. I need to.
Right.
These aren't just goals. These are things that really, for the sake
These
of,
are non-negotiables.
they're non-negotiable. For the sake of my soul and the sake of getting along with people that God has entrusted to my care or put around me in my life, I've got to get these things done.
And it doesn't mean that you're going to accomplish that tomorrow.
Right. And that brings up the second point I was thinking of is don't expect perfection from yourself. How about trying to expect perseverance?
There you go.
Like, I expect that I'm going to keep trying. I don't expect that I'm going to accomplish it 100% and I'm going to be perfect in all of it, and probably none of it. I mean, some things you just do and you go, wow, that turned out really good. Okay, that one really worked out well. That's great. You're going to have those successes, those victories sometimes. But in general, I want to wake up every day with the attitude, no matter what the day is like, I'm not quitting. I'm going to do what Scripture says. Those who persevere to the end will find salvation. God doesn't want us to just lay down and roll over. Thomas More would say, according to the movie, if the quote is accurate, is we use our wits about us to survive and do what we need to do in this world. But if God closes all the doors, then we die like champions. He's speaking of martyrdom. But until something like that happens, I want to show God and I want to show people around me that God has entrusted in my life that I'm not a quitter. And I'm going to persevere no matter what the situation, spiritually and naturally, do the best I can. And when I make mistakes, own up to them, realize I'm not perfect, don't beat myself up for it. Don't beat yourself up over your humanity, but keep trying to improve in those areas. And not only will you find in your own heart a better order and a better peace of mind, but people around you, as we talked earlier, will be able to count on you and trust you because you're going to be that more disciplined individual that people are always looking to want to be around.
And you'll have freedom. Discipline brings freedom.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Following the commandments brings freedom.
It does.
Following God's commands.
Yeah.
Bring freedom.
We really want to emphasize one more time, go out to that free download. Yes. Because again, son, that's a great way to start getting yourself on track with taking some steps. You're not talking about building out a whole new storage room of your house full of gear and equipment. Yeah. You're talking about a bag to have in your vehicle. Yeah. That's a good emergency bag.
Very doable goal.
Very
to
doable.
Accomplish. And we listed all the steps for you to take and all the right gear and links to all the gear. So yeah, go check that out in the description below. Or if you're listening to this podcast, in the summary of the podcast below. And we're going to be doing more podcasts on prepping, quote unquote, preparedness, being ready for anything from a natural disaster to something way worse.
Yeah, World War III.
Crazy world right now.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for your time, Dad.
You bet. Good to be with you, son.